I begin this investigation with an excursus into the historical past. When considering the difference between a manuscript and a printed copy, it is worth time traveling to the moment when the Gutenberg press changed traditional and accepted methods of transmitting written information. While printing tools and machines existed in China, Korea, and Italy long before Gutenberg's press, such attempts remain isolated and never reach a standard of mechanization acceptable as an efficient method for large-scale printing. But with the advent of the printing press and large-scale printing, something changed. We could say, from the historical vantage point of the present time, that the uniqueness of a manuscript assumed a greater value, cultural, social, and ultimately economic. An object for art collectors rather than for daily reading purposes. At the same time, it lost other kinds of importance, again cultural, social, and economic. It became a text which, once printed, could be replaced and replicated thousands of times, or endlessly in the current so-called digital era. However, the tactile and more generally sensuous experience of handling a manuscript was preserved, though standardized and homogenized in the printed copy with obvious differences between the two. In premise, handwritten versus typographic fonts, but also paper textures, handmade as opposed to manufactured industrially. Color and smell of the paper and ink, the ink being delivered by a printing machine as opposed to a hand-cut quill, to name a few. Further, I noticed that a manuscript is the witness of an individual person's existence. It is itself a time machine, projecting us directly in front of a person who compiled the manuscript, who has opened it several times before us. A person whose name may or may not have been preserved in time, a person who gave the manuscript a life which goes beyond the written words on paper. The manuscript is the witness of that individual, a testimony of memories past, of the labor of the writing tools, of the hand, of the person behind it. Then the manuscript offers a glimpse into the past life of someone else and allows us to wonder the time and space between then and now. When we sit before a handwritten book, when we open it, we repeat exactly the same gestures of many before us, as the manuscript passed down from hand to hand. These observations takes me closer in time to the early 19th centuries of the first photographic plates, a technology built upon centuries of experiments with the camera obscura. Photographic reproduction changed concept of temporality and the human experience of time. By isolating, detaching, and fragmenting instants of time, photography projects multiple coexisting timelines onto a present moment, permanently modifying the process of direct perception. I look at pictures taken sometimes in the past, of a place or people I do not know, an experience of someone else detached from any relationship to me, only connected by inferences I may make. The photograph instantly proposes a relation with the space, object, and people congealed in that image. A relation, however, devoid of any personal sense of experience of such a place, object, or persons. Even if the photograph depicts my own self in a place I have been, that is the past. That person is no longer the actual me. No matter how, what I'm looking at no longer exists in my conscious horizon, rather only my reconstruction of an event from the past taking form in memories. Or else as a fantastic hallucinatory extrapolation of an event or place that had never existed at all within my own past experiences. This aspect of photography is closely related to the shift of perceptual habits in which experiences that have been for the longest time tactile, olfactory, acoustic, and gustative, and here I remind myself of the example of the manuscript, have been progressively flattened, or for a better word, homogenized, into an experience mainly or only for the eyes. Photography ushered in a whole system of mechanical reproduction that, together with mass printing and growing industrializations, defines repeatability as a standard economic process and sociocultural habit, privileging size as the interface for human perception. From this recent past, I jump finally to today with USB drives, Blu-ray, DVDs, internet storage clouds, software. applications that are year by year, day by day, minute by minute, replacing physical objects. It could be noticed that these changes in perceptual habits occurring in the centuries preceding the epoch now called the Industrial Revolution, at present in its fourth phase, were slow. The human being was still the fulcrum of sensors and productive processes. Such processes could not happen without the presence and direction of the individuals behind machines. I refer here to the period of history where agriculture was the fundamental activity of the human population, with the progressive domestication of plants and animals. In the current economy, humans are no longer individuated by a single role or place. Rather, they are assimilated into a complex mechanism, floating in mare magnum at the merging of virtual spaces, times, and relationships, and machines are the fulcrum and commanding core. In a moment, I will relate this process of diminished individuality. I refer here to Gilbert Simondon's concept of individuation, to my investigation into contemporary musical matters. Simondon observed that individuation is a process occurring within a social group, never in isolation. I become an individual because of a group to which I relate. I partake in this individuation through my engagement with the group itself, with others, and with objects. Bernard Stiegler observed that the loss of individuation occurs within what he calls the hyper-technological society, through the experience of the Internet. The synchronization of users' operation encourages circumstances for consciousness and masses of consumers to be unified and act as one. The blurring of the boundaries of the psychic I and we, the vanishing of the process of individuation, is induced by the control of temporality of consciousness, fostered by marketing strategies and by the mechanization of normality. Stiegler here echoes Deleuze's control societies and Lefebvre's critique of daily life. The migration from direct experience of perceptual process to a surrogate virtual experience based on visual feedback, photography, film, portable devices, computers, and screen, has consequences whose magnitude we do not know yet. I do not here indulge in speculations about negative aspects of the contemporary reliance and addiction to digital sources, in contrast to the sensuous emancipation of the hypothetical idyllic past. Rather, I am trying to delineate a process which changes, whatever those are certain repercussions and are deserving of careful observation and scrutiny. In Into the Universe of Technical Images, Wilhelm Flusser investigated the relationship between the human body and the digital world. The Czech philosopher observed that the passing of information, formerly accomplished by linear text, has been replaced by a flood of technical images based on the use of photographs, films, videos, television screens, and computers. Flusser focuses on the cultural implication of this mutating form of experience and perceptions, and the repercussions, mode of behavior, and values of such social transformations. I will cite an example to elucidate this. As I open the pages of my score of the first volume of Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, a score I have owned since 1983, I enter into a relationship with the object on multiple levels. I list some here as they come to mind with no attempt to intellectualize about order of importance or logical interdependency. Tactile, temporal, spatial, mnemonic, acoustic, emotional, olfactory, kinesthetic, hysthetic, associative. When I download a Bach score into my portable device, I notice differences in the relationship with the above hard copy of the Well-Tempered Clavier from 1983. Firstly, I'm not holding a score, but the device, which has multiple functions and only one appearance and feel. The downloaded score phenomenologically does not exist at all. I'm holding an object which is a substitute and surrogate for another object. The former has no relation whatsoever with the latter, aside from the same musical note which appear on the screen. It could be argued that what matters is indeed the content, the notes on the screen, the score as a musical object rather than the score as a physical object. I maintain, however, that the musical experience of the score is closely related to the intertwined experience of the physical characteristic of the object, its qualities, appearance, weight, colors, etc., rather than purely metaphysical musical aspect taken in isolation. I do relate to the music from my original Bach score as a result of its size, its textures, font style, my pencil annotation engraving on the page, the scent of the sheet of paper, the worn and yellowish edges. I hear the music even before I start to play. By reading through the pages and noticing my written remarks, I have déjà vu of practice rooms, piano, scents, lights, seats, windows, etc. The music I'm playing is modulated by many of these previous scenarios in which I have learned and embodied the music that is written on the score, in which the room I was sitting in, the teacher I was listening to, the environment I was immersed in, the cloudy or sunny day outside were all elements of my relationship with the musical score. Assuming, nonetheless, that I can read my new Bach score directly through the screen of my device, I cannot fail to notice that part of the experience of the music to which the score as an object is conducive has been somehow reduced in its perceptual horizon. On the electronic device, the score is a Bach mainly or solely for the eyes. All the other potential sensory responses which modulated my previous experience of the composer's work, a printed copy of the score from 40 years in the past, has been severed by the digital tool. As I hold onto the device, staring at the screen, I'm wondering how long this score will remain available for me inside the machine. Considering an average lifespan of electronic devices, perhaps in less than 6 years, I will not see this score on the same screen. Or perhaps if the memory of the device runs short, I will have to transfer my score somewhere else, even before that. The matter of size, texture, odor, and color of the score of a printed version has been replaced by a one-size-fits-all screen that simultaneously hosts my Bach musical score, images, videos, browsers, applications, games. A myriad of virtual objects of different format, lengths, sizes, purposes, homogenized into one anodyne container of multifarious function. Furthermore, the physical score and the electronic device are temporal objects eliciting their own distinct relationship with time. My Bach score has journeyed in time physically, traversing time and space between the early 80s and now, 2023. The physical change of the score a witness of this time travel. The score uploaded onto the portable device is instead atemporal. It does not age, it does not show changes in appearance, it is not material, unless we consider as materiality the plastic and aluminum shell of the digital device. My notes on the margin, done with a digital pen, can be removed if they never exist. In carrying the device with me, I'm not carrying the score, I'm not carrying any other books I may have stored in it. I'm holding an empty shell full of incorporeal, atemporal object whose presence within a machine is only fictitious, never tangible like a book made of paper, glue, and ink. By returning to and paraphrasing Simondon's notion of individuation, one last pertinent observation comes to my attention. A book or score has limited function. It is individuated through determined and explicit characteristics, as object for reading or playing. A musical score is defined because of its unambiguous set of features, making it individual and distinguish it as an object which cannot be confused with another. By contrast, the digital device is an obscure and chameleon-like object with cryptic and paradoxical functions. It serves many purposes, some of which are eventually hidden from the person who is holding onto it. An object whose nature is ambiguous, mutable, and purposefully nebulous. A cloud for possibilities without the determined individualities. It so appears that in illusory perceptual world, recalling flustered technical images, has replaced our linear textual thinking with a superficial visual mode of thinking, one in which physical bodies, solids, objects, things, are neglected in favor of an abstract macrocosm of photographs, films, computer-generated images. This is a dismissal of the objective world, body without orgasm, an Artodian expression and its Deleuzian reiteration. I conclude by suggesting future abilities, possible pathways through the current state of affairs by provocatively bringing into play Jorge Luis Borges' short story The Library of Babel, Elias Canetti's masterpiece Auto da Fe, and the ancient Chinese divination text I Ching. Perhaps the contemporary Homo digitalis is in a temporal being, floating endlessly in the unfolding spaces of Borges' The Library of Babel. His grasping fingers reach toward digital sources, endless replicas neatly arranged in virtual cabinets which have lost any tactile dimension. The ephemeral visual experience is retained only while peeping through a classic screen. Or perhaps bound to perpetual connectivity which has dissolved the traditional habits of perceiving time, the Homo digitalis, having retreated from the delights of collecting written volumes and books, as in Canetti Autos da Fe, is now unable to focus on anything attentively, being so ingrained by social habits that demand an uninterrupted condition of hyperconnectivity, to paraphrase Stigler. Or perhaps, finally and hopefully, the digital dérive which we are witnessing now will enact a modern version of ancient divination methods, such as those of the Chinese I Ching. Perhaps in the near future, digital machines will be able to estimate new models for the usage of digital sources by intensifying rather than curtailing human senses. Perhaps it's by following the path of the Chinese divination book, a novel interpretation of the ancient signs and statements from hexagrams or maybe by binary numbers, will bring into being a more humane, more sensuous, more experiential modality of being connected among people.